All right, well, good morning, Rocky Hill Community Church Life Group Facilitators. Christopher Scott here. It is Monday, June 8th, 2020 at 8:45 a.m. Continuing the series, giving you brief introductions to books of the Bible, and then doing a little Q&A time with things that come up during the week or that you have questions about, or just to give you some basic training on things. So, last week I asked you if you all have liked these weekly 5-minute introductions to books of the Bible, and everybody said yes. So I'm going to keep doing them. Today we're going to finish our series on the Pentateuch, the Torah, the books of law, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. So I'm going to finish that today. We're going to look at Deuteronomy. And then next week, I think I'll do a 4-part series. We'll cover for 4 weeks, cover the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So we'll look at those 4 Gospels 4 weeks in a row and go through them briefly each week. But today I want to finish our series of the Pentateuch, or it's also called the Torah, the books of law, the books of instruction, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Okay, so we've talked about how these 5 books, each name of the book describes what it is about. Okay, so Genesis is about beginnings. Okay, that's what Genesis means, beginnings. Then Exodus is about exiting, because the nation of Israel leaves Egypt, they exit. Then there's Leviticus, which is about the law, right? Giving details of the law. And then Numbers is about counting and counting the people and giving further law. And then today we're looking at Deuteronomy. And Deuteronomy comes from the Latin Vulgate, the name was Deuteronomium, which meant second law. And also it comes from the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, means Deutero, second. Okay, so Deuteronomy is pretty much the second giving of the law, or the summarization of the law, and things that Moses tells the people again before they enter the Promised Land. And if you read Deuteronomy 17:18, it references this second giving of the law. It says 17:18, when he sits on the throne as king, it's just talking about the king of Israel, when he sits on the throne as king, he must copy for himself this body of instruction on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priests, right? So that's where the idea for the Latin Vulgate and the Septuagint come from, is 17:18, right there, about this second copying of the law. And Deuteronomy really is a summarization of the law that Moses gives the nation of Israel in Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. It really summarizes, but also gives it again and further explains it in a lot of ways, and emphasizes how the people are supposed to live it. And a few important verses in Deuteronomy that you are probably familiar with, even if you don't already know it, is in Deuteronomy 6, which is often called the Shema, which is a Hebrew word. Shema means listen, obey, understand. Shema. Deuteronomy 6:4. It says, "Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone." 6:5. "And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting them up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." Okay, so that's the Shema, Deuteronomy 6, verses 6 through 9, that summarizes really the entire Old Testament law. Love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And that is something that Jesus quotes a couple times in the Gospels. He's quoting Deuteronomy when he gives those commandments to us in the Gospels. Okay, so that's Deuteronomy. It's the 5th of the 5 books of Moses, right? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And it's Deutero. It's kind of the second giving of the law. Moses gives the law again. He summarizes it. He further explains some of the points in it. And we've said that these 5 books of the Pentateuch, or the Torah, were all written by Moses. And if you read Deuteronomy, at the very end of Deuteronomy, Moses actually dies. And he gets buried. but then there's some words after that, right? So obviously someone came along to this book after Moses wrote it all down and added a little bit to the end of the book. Deuteronomy 34, Moses went up to Mount Nebo from the plains of Gilead, land Ephraim, Moses, servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab. The Lord buried him in the valley. And then Deuteronomy 34:9, it says, now Joshua, son of Nun, was full of the Spirit and wisdom. So Moses is dead, but then in Deuteronomy 34:9, it has a few more verses about Joshua and introducing the book of Joshua. So obviously someone came along a little later, added a few things to Deuteronomy, but these 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, were all written by Moses somewhere between 1446, which is when the nation of Israel left Egypt, and 1406, which is when Moses died. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Deuteronomy, a 5-part series looking at the 5 books of Moses, the beginning of the Old Testament. Next week, we'll start our series going through the Gospels. So I hope that was helpful for you as you're going through that. So thanks again for watching. I didn't really receive any questions or comments this week that really needed to be addressed. I know you all watched church and probably heard about the day that we're going to start in-person church services. So hopefully you were able to watch that and get that update that Pastor Dave shared at the end. Thanks for watching, and I'll post this video onto our YouTube channel in case you wanted to catch it again in the future or reference back to it. And thanks for doing your group. Thanks for your ministry, and hope to stay in touch with you and talk to you soon.